What's going on, y'all? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. This week on Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit, blades! All the blades! Black adept for a black blade, a sprinkling of arcane casting, a mind blade, a bunch of third-party... AJ, it's too much. This all can't go together. It'll be bad. Can't do it. As per the request, many things are getting the axe. We just did an Arcanist. So this week, the Mindblade Magus. I heard you wanted to play Psylocke. If you're liking what you're seeing, remember to like, subscribe, ding the bell. I got a little crack in there. Good enough. Stay caught up on all your stuff. Remember, Patreon is the #1 way to keep me cranking out content for a now very old and defunct game, and newer editions of it as well, and gets you access to a bunch of Google Sheets with a bunch of content and a bunch of other cool stuff. But for now, let's dive in. Okie dokie. So the name of the game for this week's build is Versatility. The Mindblade can do a lot of things that a lot of other builds just straight up cannot, and is the one and only class to eventually, like level 19 for us, have the ability to use spell combat while wielding a two-handed weapon. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The Mindblade casts spells from the Magus list, but casts them as psychic spells, which on the one hand is a pretty steep downside. This means our spells lack verbal and somatic components, but have thought and emotion components. Both of these can be really bad for the guy who wants to cast in melee. If we lack the move action to center ourselves because of the emotion component, our concentration DCs are just way higher. And because of the logic component, if we're ever in a bad headspace, aka shaken, we can't cast at all. A Magus wants to be up in someone's face, so this can feel real trappy, but you know, because giving into traps is not what heroes do, we're building around it. There are a lot of ways to, even before the meta magic, dodge this. They also cast spontaneously at a progression similar to a bard, and beginning at level 4, add 2 spells from the psychic spell list to their list as Magus spells. This ticks up again at 7th, 11th, 14th, and 19th. They can also spell blending into the psychic list, which gives us a lot of really unique, really versatile options that the Magus doesn't often see, but the big one here is our ability to Psylocke out a weapon with Psychic Pool. This replaces our Arcane Pool and functions as Arcane Pool for feats and abilities and stuff, but instead of being able to use this to enchant a weapon, by expending 1 point from our pool as a standard action, we can manifest a light melee weapon formed of psychic energy. By spending 2 points, it's a one-handed weapon, 3 points, it's a two-handed weapon, but not a double weapon. They last forever, but vanish if we drop them, or like made a javelin and decided we wanted to throw it and then watched as that didn't work at all. Weapons can also be dismissed as a free action, and when this happens, the points that were invested in them are returned to the pool. From jump at level 1, the psychic weapon is a +1 weapon at the snap of our fingers. At 3rd and every 3 levels thereafter, the weapon's enhancement bonus increases by 1 up to a maximum of +5 at level 12. From 5 on, we can also tack on abilities that are listed in the Magus's Arcane Pool feature. Then at 7th level, we can maintain 2 psychic weapons or a psychic double weapon, though their enhancement bonuses are 1 level then lower. From 12 forward, this becomes 2 levels lower than normal. That feels weird and is reverse scaling, but we're not using double weapons, so it's fine. Whilst using 2-weapon fighting with 2 psychic weapons or a psychic double weapon, Magi can use spell combat that take a -2 on things to 2-weapon fighting cast a spell like it's an Elder Scrolls game. At level 8, we can manifest a weapon as a swift action. That's more important for later. And then at level 13, and not only can we manifest a pair of double daggers if that's really your shtick, we can use spell combat as though we had a hand free whilst holding a 2-handed weapon. Said all that to say that this is one of the most versatile abilities that I've seen on a martial in 1st edition Pathfinder. So often do particular builds or concepts or things highly incentivize using specifically one weapon over the course of a character's career, be that the War Priest's sacred weapon or the Aldori Sword Lord's Aldori sword, and so on and so forth. This is options. This is the tool you need for the task at hand. Are we crit fishing today? Cool. Generate a falchion. Oh god, we're surrounded by oozes. Better switch to something that does a very high amount of damage and doesn't split them, like off the top of my head a Lucerne hammer. DR 10 over piercing, you say? Oh wow, I have a rapier now. Swallowed whole, manifest a dagger. Need a reach weapon? Pick one. There are so many. Need an an uber reach weapon, generate a Sarissa without having to worry about where the cone is pointing when you let it go as a free action, and then as a swift action generate the weapon you wanted to have. It's seriously, this is the coolest thing. Its versatility is really good for surreptitious behavior as well. Need to get past the guards at a given town, knowing you're going to be disarmed when you enter the city or peace bonded or so on and so forth. You can just snap your fingers, make another weapon, or if you'd like to lure someone into a tricky situation, we can do that as well, and that forms the crux of the build. In addition to today's 14 levels of Magus, we will be taking 5 levels of fighter, specifically a phalanx soldier. It does a bunch of things that we don't care about until level 5, outside from the buff to your base attack bonus, the more feats, the armor proficiency we trade out. But at level 5, once per day a phalanx soldier can ready a weapon with the brace property as an immediate action, gaining a +1 on attack and damage rolls, which becomes a +2 when you do double damage when they run into that sharp pointed object that you've buried into the ground to receive a charge. This is one of the hardest things to pull off in first edition Pathfinder, because so often intelligent opponents will see, oh hey, they've got a spear braced, maybe I shouldn't run recklessly into that and do something else. This we can do as, say, a combination of a readied action and an immediate action. Picture this if you will. We do a bunch of things on our turn in combat that happen either as non-actions or from an attack of opportunity or a quicken spell. At the end of whatever shenanigans we get up to, which we'll talk about in just a second, we demanifest the weapon we are using, pantomime that we are hurt, 5-foot step into a convenient charge lane, maybe do some magic or some cunning roleplay and bluff checks to be like, oh god, I'm so wounded, I hope no one shows up and finishes me off, knowing that we have a readied standard or swift, depending on how our action economy went that turn, to when an enemy gets within a certain amount of feet of us to manifest a brace weapon and then use ready pike to set it, and suddenly they've run into something that hurts really bad. For the Magus, remember that when you cast a spell and hold the charge, you can in fact choose to deliver that held spell through the business end of a weapon, so when your Shocking Grasp is doing double damage, I suppose we could say that it in fact becomes even more shocking. We're also going to have 1 level of Master of Many Styles Monk, you'll see why in a minute. Today we are building on an elf. The elf's plus to dexterity and intelligence are the 2 things we want the most. The con neg hurts, but well friend, I believe in you. As a Magus, we're casting a lot of spells that are going to interact with spell resistance. That bonus to overcome them looks real good, and being proficient with weapons that include Elven in the name give us access to 2 of the best weapons in Pathfinder, frankly. The Elven Curve Blade, a gigantic D10 damage dice with an 18 to 20 threat range, and the Elven Branched Spear, which is a spear that gives us a +2 on attacks of opportunity when they run through it when they didn't see it coming, and suddenly a very sharp psychic thing has manifested and bloomed out of the back of them. Fun. For our traits today, reactionary, you knew you'd see it, we want to go first. You really could take Warrior of Old if you just had to have something different, and alongside it, Student of Philosophy to let us add our intelligence to our bluff checks to tell a lie because we want to be pretty deceptive to pull that big braced weapon off. Gonna do some shenanigans with our intelligence as well. It is our most important stat, followed by 1 in the modifier by dexterity. Our constitution and wisdom are important. We are one of those monks that will not be adding our wisdom to our AC unless the GM hands down a template or a very big wisdom bonus, or you rolled and just happened to generate a bunch of dice. Our constitution, again, is that band-aid for when they're swinging at us too much. This build has 2 dump stats. Charisma, we're definitely here to talk to people, but not by being persuasive, by being cold and logical. Strength is an absolute dump stat, even if our weapon encumbers us when we generate a big fuck-off axe out of nowhere. When we demanifest it, we're good to go once again. There are so many feats in this build. We are taking advantage of my modified elephant in the room. You can follow this card right up here to learn more. TLDR, elephant in the room, but feats with improved and greater variance. Style feats automatically advance as soon as the rest of our build qualifies for them. Let's talk about it. This build dances around a lot. It feels very 3.5, and I really like that. 3 levels of fighter to begin, then our monk dip at level 4 for when Master of Many Styles is on, so we can get 2 style feats on at once, then 2 more levels of fighter, then Magus the rest of the way. For our feats out the gate, combat reflexes gives us additional attacks of opportunity equal to our dexterity, and from our bonus feat from being a fighter, we'll grab Elven Battle Training. This says that you receive a +2 bonus to your CMD against disarm and sunder maneuvers directed at weapons weapons that elves are good with, long swords, rapiers, short bows, long bows, the composite variants of both, and elven weapons. It also gives us +1 attack of opportunity on top of combat reflexes. This is blatantly the biggest feat tax I've ever seen in my whole life, and I hate it, and is part of the reason why I let things auto-upgrade so the marshals can get their toys faster. We immediately go into elven battle style. This one's also a really shitty tax. While using any of those weapons we have weapon familiarity with, combat maneuver checks attempted with those weapons as attacks of opportunity don't themselves provoke attacks of opportunity, which I guess it's not bad if you generate like a rancer and are using that to disarm someone, or like tripping as part of the attack of opportunity with any given weapon with the trip trait. There are a lot of them. It leans into the versatility of things that you're getting up to, and in low level play, you're much more likely, IMO, to run into things that have manufactured weapons or are on the ground to be tripped. So yeah, sure, your mileage may vary, but don't, strictly speaking, hate it. At level 2, from our next fighter bonus feat, Dodge and Mobility, praise be the elephant for a +1 dodge bonus to our AC and a +4 to our armor class when we provoke attacks of opportunity by movement, which, oh god, we are going to do so much. At level 3, improved initiative, because if you made it this far, why not? Just kidding. We're taking this one so fast because all of our like big Magus feats, namely metamagic feats, come online so late that for the first time in a while, our level 19 feat has to actually be something. At level 4, our bonus feat from Master of Many Styles will be Crane Style. Crane Style and Elven Battle Style are the two styles that we are going to be using throughout this build. Crane Style lessens the penalty on attack rolls for fighting defensively to -2 and gives you an additional +1 dodge bonus to your armor class, and additionally that monk dip gives us improved unarmed strike, so when we aren't generating a weapon made out of magical psychic pixie dust, or whatever it is your psychic flavor text is, we can still punch someone, and in fact the rest of the time when we've generated psychic weapons made out of that stuff that exists beyond the veil of dreams, and insert a H.P. Lovecraft quote that isn't horrible and toxic here, we can also kick someone. More options, more good. It's the name of the build. Coming down at level 5, we'll grab Step Up to let us chase after things that are trying to get out of the reach of our Elven Branch Spear, and this is the point where Elven Battle Style automatically upgrades into Elven Battle Focus. This allows us, whilst using Elven Battle Style, to add our intelligence modifier to the weapon's damage instead of any other ability bonuses or modifiers that we might be able to add. Since Weapon Finesse is free under Elephant in the Room, we were doing Dexterity to attack and damage with most of our stuff before. Now we're doing, most of the time, Dexterity to hit, Intelligence to damage, with some options to add our Intelligence as well later on once we start getting Magus stuff. At level 6, our final fighter level, and that all-important Bab of 5, because we're regularly making reach weapons and can make the big boy reach weapons, Combat Patrol lets us, as a full round action, increase our threatened area by 5 feet for every 5 points of our Bab, and it lets us make attacks of opportunity against any opponent in this threatened area that provokes. You can move as part of these, provided your total movement doesn't exceed your speed. That movement provokes as well. We want that to happen because we have options when we provoke attacks of opportunity, and this is the point where we can then run up in front of someone who's charging our friend Mr. or Mrs. Very Squishy Wizard, and then brace a spear, and then oops, they died. Crane Wing alongside that to, when fighting defensively with at least one hand free, gain a +4 dodge bonus to our armor class. Remember, changing the handedness of a weapon is a free action, so when you're done full attacking with your spear, if you need more AC, you can just release a hand, still be armed because you can punch or kick, or you could have generated an Elven Leaf or Elven Thorn Blade for a very fancy kukri or scimitar, or something like a longsword as well. Level 7 is our first Magus level, and this is the point where that really cool trick comes online, where people might just very quickly accidentally run into us, and it'll be really funny. The feat we'll take here is Extra Arcane Pool for indeed 3 more points in that pool of stuff, which is enough to generate up to a two-handed weapon, even before counting the rest of our arcane pool, which we definitely want to use for other things. At level 9, we'll grab Weapon Focus. Weapon Focus allows you to grab from weapon groups. We don't talk about this a lot. Matter of fact, I don't think I ever have, but GMs are allowed to make weapon groups of their own. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to make the argument that the Elven weapon group can be its own group for the purposes of things like weapon focus and improved critical and such. That, again, being rapiers, long swords, longbows, short bows, the composite versions of each, and any weapon with Elven in their name. This will give us a +1 to hit with them. Super dope. This is also also the point where we will finally reach Crane Riposte. This means we're only taking a -1 for fighting defensively, and whenever we lose our dodge bonus from Crane Wing because an attack missed us by 4 or less, we can make an attack of opportunity against the attacker after the attack missed. This is the same level we will be grabbing Flamboyant Arcana for our first Magus Arcana to give us, namely, Opportune Parry and Riposte for even more deflecting, even more, oh, did I run through your threat range? I don't really care about that. I'm going to try to knock this out of the way and then maybe stab you, or maybe you come dangerously close to hitting me and then maybe I'll stab you. At level 11, we will grab Extra Arcane Pool one more time to continue to facilitate the amount of points we're going to be just burning through, trying to parry and buff ourselves and such. With our first Magus bonus feat, we will grab Improved Critical, again choosing Elven weapons because we can't make them keen innately, so gotta grab it here on this side to double our threat range. For our next Magus Arcana, we'll grab Hasted Assault. 2 as a swift action, be hasted for several rounds, not burning a spell slot or our friend's spell slots to hit them more harder with more things. Then at level 13, we'll start grabbing meta magic stuff first. Logical spell, that all important for when you just really have to have that logical remove fear to keep moving. And our last free feat upgrade of the build, and probably around the point I feel this build is functionally done, Elven Battle Torrent. Whilst using Elven Battle Style, any opponent that makes an attack against you and misses while you are fighting defensively or using total defense, aka doing everything Crane Style wants to do, provokes an attack of opportunity. Even with combat reflexes, you can't benefit more than once per round, but we're in both Crane Style, which gives us this, and Elven Battle Style, which gives us, well, this. Additionally, with our ability to riposte sometimes, this makes us very defensive, sometimes just straight up out of nowhere. There are so many defenses. This is even before like displacement or any of the myriad amount of spells that can hurt you if you hit us, to keep things off and keep damage coming forward in really whatever way you want this to look. Elven Battle Torrent goes off with the Elven Curve Blade too, so double spicy. Since so much of our magic is going to be targeting saves and imposing debuffs, we'll next grab Persistent Spell, so when folks save against our magic, they must then save again later on. Alongside this, on the Arcana side, we'll take Arcane Accuracy, 2 as a swift action, add a bonus equal to our intelligence modifier to hit. Spicy. Quicken Spell at 17 for when you really gotta jam that swift action to murder somebody and didn't want to use the rod you probably bought. And Empower Spell from our last bonus Magus feat, and Intensify Spell for our last bonus Magus feat to make our shocking grasps all the more shocking and graspy. Our final Magus Arcana will be Maximized Magic to once a day have a very big Nova Eat Shit spell. And at level 19, Spell Perfection, choosing the spell Ill Omen. What's that do? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Let's talk about our spells. So, like all Magi, you're definitely going to want your Evocation Suite to make them dead, your Corrosive Touch, your Shocking Grasp, so on and so forth. You're also, especially because us casting defensively is a real difficult thing to do, we will be on purpose provoking attacks of opportunity, granted parrying, crane styling, and so on and so forth to not get bonked in the face about it, but that doesn't mean displacement, mirror image don't also go a long way. But for the sake of this, I want to highlight the psychic spells that can really make a build like this shine. First things first, the one we're taking Spell Perfection for, Ill Omen. At close range, targeting one creature with a duration of 1 round per level or until discharged with no save. On the next d20 roll the target makes, with bad luck they must roll twice and take the less favorable result. For every 5 caster levels you have, the target must roll twice on an additional d20 roll to a maximum of 5 at 20. The spell is with no save, disadvantage on the next 3 d20 rolls. If the target can speak, has a free hand, knows what happens, they can spend a move action to negate some of those rerolls, but that means they're not full attacking and is likely so much the better. Choosing this one for Spell Perfection means we can burn a level 1 spell slot and quicken this, then go into spell combat, attacking a whole bunch, and then throwing very potent debuff spells at the big scary things. Like, for example, Mental Block. At 1 round per level, though they get to save at the end of their turn, with a will save to negate. If this sticks, it's a game ender. The target loses all skill ranks, spells known, spells prepared, activated feats, extraordinary supernatural, and spell-like abilities. This reduces things to their hit dice, their base attack bonus, and static feats like weapon focus. I mean it. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If this spell sticks on someone, that is probably the fight just straight up donezo. Granted, they get to save at the end of the round to end the effect early, but you would be overwhelmingly surprised how many monsters within the space of Pathfinder add their charisma to their will saves, or have some other non-static way to buff that out. This is real good. Even for one round can really help you win the race. Burst of Adrenaline would look a lot better if we started Magus, but as an immediate action, when you're about to make a d20 roll based on Strength, Dex, or Con, cast this spell, get a +8 enhancement bonus to either of those, but you are fatigued for one round afterwards. It's an enhancement bonus, so it doesn't necessarily stack with things, but it's at least 2 better than the best belt, probably 4 better than the belt you're rocking for a long time in your career. And again, a low-level spell slot for a small debuff coming around next round. Remove Fear is a very big staple spell that we absolutely must have, because sometimes we're just going to need a logical quickened remove fear by virtue of like a meta magic rod to make it quickened, so we're not just burning through high-level spell slots to make sure we can cast it in the first place. And because we are psychic casters, we do not have any sound-based spell components, so casting silence on us not only makes us this very terrifying reaper of death, it also doesn't shut us off at all, but might shut off the casters who we're fighting at the end of the game. Heroism, for 10 minutes a level, available to so many classes, Magus not being one of them, gives the guy that wants to go up and fight things a +2 morale bonus on attack rolls, saves, and skill checks. And speaking of fighting things, a 5th level psychic spell will take this at the very end of the game. Imagine full attacking with a -2 and then casting etheric shards. It's like Wall of Thorns with less control but more damage. At hours per level, this makes deadly invisible razors. Creatures entering a 5-foot square of these razors take 1d8 points of piercing and slashing damage and must attempt a reflex save or take 1 point of bleed damage, which is cumulative. Cast this in the charge lane that you might be trying to influence things to run through. They won't be able to see it, and if they end up fighting in those squares, it's still extra damage that they have to take if they're doing anything short of just holding still. Things that can see invisible or ethereal objects get a +4 bonus. The damage is negated on a reflex save. This is a magical trap, so trap finding things can use perception to find them, but bull rushing or dragging someone through the broken glass imparts a -4. Cast this, particularly against a target that cannot identify spells, then use a quickened meta magic rod to cast the piece de resistance of this build, Suggestion. This build is in part one of the reasons we are going to be bluff based. It's a will to negate, lasts for hours per level at close range, targeting a living creature. You suggest a course of activity limited to a sentence or two, worded in such a manner as to make it sound reasonable. Obviously, harmful acts automatically are negated, but if they can't see the invisible shards they're running through, well, you know. The spell ends when the subject finishes what you wanted it to do. Picture this, if you will. On your turn, use a move action to move through way too many threat ranges, provoke attacks of opportunity, parry what you are afraid of, allow Elven Battle Torrent and or Crane Riposte to absorb a copious amount of damage, allow one of the attacks to hit you. You can do that. You literally can choose to allow something to cause you harm. When that happens, use a free action to dismiss your etheric weapon, then a swift action to cast a quickened suggestion, something along the lines of, I can see my life flashing before my eyes, you should charge me, you could kill me. That seems like it lands in the this is very reasonable and imparts a penalty on the save. Then use your standard action to ready to manifest a psychic elven branch spear should something move from within 10 feet to within 5 feet of you. You can do that backwards if you don't have a charge on the meta magic rod too, because we can ready swift actions. Presuming the target fails, and bonus points if they run through etheric shards about it, when they get into range to have fallen into your deadly bluffy trap, manifest a braced weapon, use an immediate action to brace it, and then suddenly they've taken a bunch of damage from your weapon and are probably swinging at you, which you can then try to parry, try to riposte, try to let all of your abilities that you have do what they do. And if they're fighting inside etheric shards, so much the worse for them. For our key magic items, the big 6, always very important. You can follow this card right up here to learn more about them. The Magus suite is pretty straightforward. As many runestones of power as you can get your hands on for more ability to cast things. For us, an Amulet of Mighty Fists with spell storing, putting your favorite thing to slam on someone when you punch them, like perhaps an intensified shocking grasp, or an ill omen, or a mental block. The choice is yours, friend. And as many meta magic rods as you can get your hands on to cast spells without necessarily having to use the meta magic feats. In the optimized party, which you can follow this card right up here about, we're stuck somewhere between the battlefield control and the Punisher in a really interesting way, because this helps helps our full casters behind us save spell slots, which means that party can go on longer before needing to rest. And lastly, where do you play this one? Well, where you shouldn't play it. First and foremost, ironically, the occult classes do not do so well in horror-based campaigns because if they get shaken, it's difficult for them to cast, so likely not there. Being deception-based means that we are very good at intriguey things, your Council of Thieves, your War for the Crown, or any game at all where a GM will incentivize you to use your words instead of violence. Double points for that too, because all of the towns that you've gone in your time where your weapons are checked at the gate doesn't matter here, because you can just manifest your weapon on the other side and, well, officer, you never had one in the first place. Likewise, that makes this build particularly good in any campaign where gear might be fewer and farther between. If you're running survival-based things, the Mindblade has it on lock. But that's all the time I have for this one. What do y'all think? Psychic casters, fancy weird weapons conjured out of nowhere. How have we done it? Throw it down in the comments. As always, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.